I stood frozen at the altar, bouquet in hand, staring at the empty aisle where my bride was supposed to walk toward me. The music had stopped. The whispers began. Every eye turned toward me, pity, confusion, some even smirking. But I wasn't confused. I knew. She wasn't coming. Just an hour before the ceremony, I got the message. I'm sorry. I'm with Daniel now. I can't marry you. Please don't hate me. Daniel. Her ex. The guy who cheated on her 3 times and crashed her car while high. The guy I picked her up from when she cried in my arms and swore she'd never go back. The same guy who used to laugh at how soft I was. I couldn't breathe. The pastor asked if I wanted to reschedule. My best man gently pulled me away from the altar. I could barely hear anything over the pounding in my ears. The guests were filling out. And then, amid the chaos and floral disappointment, her Aunt Cassandra walked up to me in her emerald green dress and whispered, "You don't deserve this, Logan. She'll regret it. They both will." Her words didn't fix the pain. Nothing could at that moment. But that look in Cassandra's eyes, that strange mix of sorrow, warmth, and something else I couldn't name, that stayed with me. They thought they broke me. But this was the day I was reborn. And by the time I was done, they would wish they never walked out of my life or into hers. I met Sienna Harper during our senior year of college. She was the kind of girl who made rooms brighter the second she walked in, not just because of her looks, but because she had this radiant confidence that felt magnetic. She studied communications and was always surrounded by people. I was the quiet one majoring in computer science, head always buried in code or books. Our first real conversation happened in the campus library, of all places. She couldn't find the particular textbook and I helped her out. 1 hour of small talk turned into 3 hours of laughter, shared stories, and cold coffees. She was everything I didn't know I needed: loud where I was quiet, fearless where I was cautious. I remember thinking, there's no way a girl like her would fall for a guy like me. But she did. We started dating right after graduation. It felt like something out of a dream. She called me her rock, said I grounded her in ways no one ever had. I was always there when her anxiety flared up, when she needed to rant, when her parents put pressure on her about career plans. She said she'd never felt safer with anyone. And, truth be told, I was completely in love with her. I spent 3 years building a life for us. I landed a stable tech job, started saving up. Every time I looked at her, I saw forever. She introduced me to her family after a few months of dating. Her mom, Karen, was a bit cold. The kind of woman who always had a glass of white wine in hand and rarely looked up from her phone. But it was Cassandra, her mom's younger sister, who surprised me. She was elegant, composed, and fiercely observant. There was this calm strength about her. At first, I just saw her as Sienna's aunt, someone from a different generation. But over time, I noticed she was always the one to pull Sienna aside when things got overwhelming. Always the one to remind her to be kind, to not let ego drive her decisions. She even defended me once when Sienna and I had a minor argument at Thanksgiving. "She's lucky to have someone who actually listens," Cassandra had said quietly, after pulling me aside in the kitchen. "Men like you don't come around often." At the time, I chalked it up to kindness. What I didn't know was how prophetic those words would become. Back then, all I saw was Sienna. We traveled together Italy, Japan, the coast of Maine. We danced under lanterns at a summer festival in Kyoto. We got lost in Florence and ended up finding a tiny cafe that served the best espresso of my life. We binge-watched horrible reality shows and dreamed about what our future home would look like. She always said she wanted a garden. I promised her I'd learn to plant roses. We talked about marriage more seriously around year 2. I was nervous, but when she looked at me with those hazel eyes and said, "I can't wait to be your wife," I believed her. I proposed at her favorite vineyard, surrounded by fairy lights and our closest friends. She cried. I cried. It was perfect. Looking back now, I can't pinpoint the moment things started shifting. Maybe it was when Daniel, her ex, moved back into town. She casually mentioned it one day, but her eyes darted just a little too quickly when I asked if she'd spoken to him. Maybe it was how often she started staying late at yoga, even though I found her mat untouched in the car one evening. But at the time, I brushed it all off. Love makes you blind, but trust? Trust makes you foolish. And I was a fool. A fool who gave everything to a woman who'd already handed her heart back to someone else. It started small. At first, it was her phone always face down. Then she added a passcode. She never used to have one. I only noticed because one night while we were watching a movie, it buzzed and she quickly swiped it away, laughing nervously. Just work drama, she said. But I knew her colleagues. I'd met most of them. They were the type to text after 10 p.m. Then came the yoga nights. Twice a week turned into 4. Sometimes, she didn't come home until after midnight. Her excuse was always the same. Traffic, drinks with the girls, or I lost track of time. One night, I offered to drive her to class. She declined. Said she needed the time to meditate alone. That night, her mat was still in the trunk when I went to grab groceries. Still, I told myself not to jump to conclusions. She was probably just overwhelmed. Planning a wedding, working full-time, it was a lot. Maybe I was being paranoid. But the real fracture came one weekend when she said she was going on a girls' trip to Lake Tahoe with her college friends. I didn't think much of it, she'd done those before. But then I ran into Camille, one of her closest friends, at a coffee shop that same Saturday. Wait, Camille said, raising an eyebrow. Tahoe? We didn't go to Tahoe. We haven't done that trip since last fall. Why? I remember feeling this sharp chill run through my body, even though it was warm inside. She said you all went this weekend, I said quietly. Camille's mouth parted slightly. No, I haven't seen Sienna in weeks. I nodded, trying to smile, but my hands were shaking when I left. I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I did what I never thought I'd do. I checked her tablet. We shared an Apple ID. I remembered that too late. There they were. Dozens of messages. Not even hidden. Daniel. Photos. Smiling selfies. Hotel rooms. Him, shirtless. Her wearing the necklace I gave her on our anniversary in his bed. Last night was amazing, she'd written. You've changed, he replied. You're still mine, Sienna. I think I always was, she replied. I couldn't breathe. The woman I was about to marry, the woman I'd bled for emotionally and financially, had been playing house with the man who used to call her insane and clingy. I sat in the living room for hours that night, just still. When she came home the next day, smiling and sun-kissed, I almost vomited. She kissed my cheek. Told me she brought back a souvenir. I didn't say a word. Not yet. I needed to know everything. So I waited. I watched. And the more I saw, the more it broke me. She'd been meeting Daniel for over 3 months. They went to the vineyard where I proposed. She even took him to that little Florence-inspired cafe, the one I thought was our special place. She lied straight to my face, over and over. One night she came into the bedroom, sat beside me and said, "You've been so distant lately, babe. Is everything okay?" I turned to her and studied her eyes. The gall. The audacity. Just tired, I muttered. And I was tired. Tired of pretending I didn't know. The final blow came 2 weeks before the wedding. I overheard her on the phone late at night. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but her voice carried down the hallway. I can't cancel the wedding now, Daniel. It would be too embarrassing. People would talk. Let's just wait until afterward. I'll figure something out. My blood ran cold. I stepped back into the bedroom without a word. That's when something inside me snapped. I realized she never loved me. Maybe she loved the idea of me, the safety, the stability. But love? Love doesn't do this. She was going to marry me, pretend, lie, and continue seeing him. Or worse, she'd humiliate me after the vows. But I wouldn't let her. I was done playing the fool. And that's when the real plan began. But not before one last surprise. The next morning, while she was in the shower, I got a text from an unknown number. "Logan, it's Cassandra. I think you need to know something. Can we meet? Privately." My heart stopped. Why was her aunt texting me? What could she possibly know? And in that moment, I realized something far more dangerous was happening. This wasn't just a betrayal. This was a full-blown conspiracy of the heart. And I wasn't just going to walk away quietly. I was going to flip the script. And they were going to regret ever thinking I was just the quiet, loyal guy who would roll over and forgive. Cassandra and I met at a quiet lakeside cafe, the kind of place you'd only find if you were looking to hide. She wore oversized sunglasses and a trench coat like we were in some kind of spy film. But when she pulled them off and looked me dead in the eye, there was no drama, just fire. "I know about Daniel," she said. "And I know that's Sienna." I didn't speak. I just waited. They think they're being clever, but they're sloppy. Sienna's been parading him around behind your back. And believe me, Daniel has no intention of settling down. He's playing her, just like he played every woman before you. I stared into my untouched coffee. "Why are you telling me this?" Cassandra took a breath. "Because you didn't deserve this. And because I care about you more than I probably should." That last part caught me off guard. But there was no time to unpack it. I had a wedding to plan and a stage to set. For the next 2 weeks, I pretended like everything was fine. I smiled. I kissed her forehead. I even picked up her dry cleaning for the big day. I let her believe she had won. Meanwhile, Cassandra helped me gather evidence photos, text threads, date stamps, and video footage of Sienna and Daniel entering a hotel room together the same night she told me she was at her bridal spa. Weekend. The key to great revenge isn't rage, it's timing. And patience. So I paid every deposit. Finalized every vendor. Even added a few upgrades. Flowers imported from Ecuador. A string quartet for the ceremony. Personalized menus with Mr. and Mrs. Logan and Sienna Carter printed in gold foil. Every cent came from my account, but I didn't mind. It wasn't an expense. It was an investment. The day of the wedding arrived. Guests filled the beautifully decorated garden. The weather was perfect. Photographers snapped away. Sienna was tucked away in her dressing room, surrounded by friends and makeup artists. I stood at the altar in my tailored navy suit, hands calm, heart steeled. Then the music started. The crowd turned, but Sienna never walked down the aisle. Instead, the music cut. The projector screen flickered to life, something I'd secretly arranged as a surprise for the bride. And what played wasn't a slideshow of our memories. It was footage. Sienna, wrapped in Daniel's arms, whispering, "He's sweet, but I could never marry someone that boring forever." Daniel laughing, "Logan? He's like a golden retriever with a paycheck." Another clip of them kissing in the very vineyard where I proposed. Gasps echoed across the venue. Her father stood up, face red. Her mother fainted. And Sienna? She came running down the aisle from the back, mascara streaked, screaming, "Logan, please, stop it. This isn't what you think." I turned to her and simply said, "You were right. I am bored. But boring doesn't mean blind." And then I dropped the mic, literally. I walked out, past the photographers, past the shocked crowd, past the destroyed illusion. But Cassandra was waiting near the garden gate. "Was that satisfying?" she asked softly. I looked back once, then nodded. Almost. Later that night, I posted the footage to a private group of close family and friends, along with a short message, "Thank you all for your love and support. The wedding is canceled." Turns out I was the only one who took it seriously. Within 24 hours, the video had leaked online. Someone shared it on a relationship drama forum. It blew up. People were outraged. Sienna's social media turned into a war zone. Sponsors dropped her lifestyle blog. Daniel, who'd been trying to rebuild his reputation as a motivational speaker for men, got dropped from 2 podcasts and was mocked in reaction videos across TikTok. Karma didn't just knock. It kicked the door in. The best part? A few days later, Sienna tried to apologize. She showed up at my place, sobbing, broken. "I made a mistake," she whispered. "Daniel's gone. He never loved me. I was scared. You were too good to me. It felt unreal. I looked at her for a long time. You didn't make a mistake, Sienna. You made a choice. Again. And again. And again. That's when Cassandra walked in from the kitchen, holding 2 mugs of tea. Sienna's eyes widened. You're kidding, she spat. Her? My aunt? Cassandra smiled faintly. Funny. I thought the same thing when I realized you were sleeping with your ex while wearing your engagement ring. Sienna stormed out. And me? I felt nothing. Not hate. Not sadness. Not triumph. Just peace. It's strange how silence can feel louder after a storm. For weeks after the wedding that never was, my phone buzzed nonstop. Messages of support, disbelief, and of course curiosity. People I hadn't spoken to in years reached out with, "Are you okay?" Texts that felt more like rubbernecking at a car crash. But once the gossip wave passed, the quiet came. And with it, clarity. I moved out of the apartment Sienna and I shared. I needed a space that was untouched by lies. I chose a small loft in the city with big windows and zero memories. For the first time in years, I started doing things for myself. I picked up painting again, something I hadn't touched since college. I traveled solo, took long walks with no destination, read novels without checking my phone every 5 minutes. And Cassandra? We didn't rush anything. Despite the whirlwind ending and all the speculation around us, we stayed grounded. She was there not as a rebound, not as some twisted revenge trophy, but as someone who understood me, who saw me. We started spending Sundays at the farmer's market. She'd laugh at how picky I was with apples. I tease her about her obsession with goat cheese. It was simple, honest, healing. She never pushed, never pretended to fill a void. She just stood beside me while I learned to be whole again. One evening, months later, we sat on the balcony watching the sunset paint the city in gold. I remember turning to her and saying, "Do you ever think about how all of this started?" She smiled. You mean your ex lying, cheating, and destroying your sense of self-worth? I laughed, for real, the kind that shakes your ribs. Yeah, I said. That. She took my hand. You know, if it didn't happen, we wouldn't be here. She was right. It took betrayal to break me, but it also forced me to rebuild. Wiser, stronger. I no longer mourned the wedding that never was, because it saved me from a marriage that would have been a slow death. Sienna reached out one more time months later. She sent a long email filled with apologies, regrets, and attempts to explain. I didn't respond. Not out of hate, but because I'd finally made peace. She was a chapter, not the story. And the best part? The man she thought was too boring became the version of himself she could never destroy.